The Elder Scrolls is a series of epic quests, powerful beings, but most of all, a lot of really strange shit. Be it Arena, Skyrim, or any game in between, you're bound to find some odd things at every turn. So today, I'm here with 5 strange facts about the Elder Scrolls that are guaranteed to blow your mind. Fact number 1 is about Vivek and his strange relationship with 2 of the Daedric princes. Vivek is a member of the Chimera race who, if you don't know, are ancestors of the Dark Elves and was one of the 3 living gods of Morrowind. He achieved a godlike state called Kim, and it's generally agreed upon that he is one of the more powerful beings in the Elder Scrolls verse. Where things start to get weird is that Vivek is actually a hermaphrodite. And he also did some very strange things with the Daedric prince of rape and domination, Molag Bal. Vivek and Molag Bal had sexual intercourse many times and had many children. What's more, it's stated that the 2 were married, and Molag Bal removed Vivek's head while they did the deed. But the strangest part of all is that neither of them really have a gender, because Vivek is a hermaphrodite and Daedric princes are technically genderless. I know a lot of you probably think I'm trolling, but this is legitimately a thing in Elder Scrolls lore. In fact, let me read you some direct quotes from the 36 Lessons of Vivek. Vivek looked upon the King of Rape and said, "How beautiful you are, that you do not join us. I would prefer," he said, "some kind of ceremony if we are to be married. We must love each other briefly," Vivek said, "if at all. You may have my head for an hour." Later in the lessons, it's stated, and I quote, "Vivek lay with Molag Bal for 8 days and 8, though headless." But wait, there's more! In the lessons of Vivek, it's stated that Vivek was in possession of a powerful spear that he called Muatra. He crafted the spear from a secret that was bitten off from Molag Bal, and then used the spear to stab the Daedric Prince Azura in the mouth. Which is all good and well, until you consider the fact that Muatra is a euphemism for Vivek's penis. There's a lot of different ways to look at this, and the situation is a bit complex, but one interpretation is that Vivek bit off the Prince of Rape's cock, used this to create a powerful spear, and named his new spear penis Muatra. Vivek then proceeded to stuff it in Azura's mouth, causing her to choke and explode. Hence the thumbnail of this video. This next fact is probably my personal favorite on the list. There's this book in the Elder Scrolls series called I Was Summoned by a Mortal, which is literally a Dremora lord writing about his experience being conjured by an Altmer mage. If you've ever made use of the Summon Dremora Lord spell, this book will leave you dying of laughter. Let me read you a couple of excerpts. "I was on guard duty at the Endless Stair, an assignment I always enjoy, for I can torment the passing soul-shriven. Leaping out from behind a claw pillar while shouting, 'There you are, weakling!' just never loses its appeal. I was lurking behind a dark anchor chain link, preparing to terrify an approaching soul-shriven by knocking her down and sneering, 'No match at all!' when I suddenly felt a strange tingling. I suddenly felt myself hurled into an endless black void. 'I smell weakness,' I said to myself, and I couldn't have been more right. For I had been summoned to do the bidding of a mortal. I tried to resist, flexing my indomitable will, but all I could do was say, 'No one escapes!' and follow him. I followed, not bothering to crouch when my conjurer hunched over to sneak, and merely glaring at him while thinking, 'I will feast on your heart!' As I subdued the final enemy, the elf came forth, gloating, 'So much for them.' 'There could be no other end,' I replied sourly. The author of this book is Keenval Zedenkothic of Clan Deathbringer, and I'll leave a link to his masterpiece story in the description. The third fact of this video is one that'll make your mind go, Besides Vivek, there was one other person who achieved the state of Kim, and that is Tiber Septim, otherwise known as the God Talos. After conquering all of Tamriel, Tiber Septim supposedly achieved Kim and ascended to godhood, but before ascending he did something rather mind-boggling. Cyrodiil was once a place of deep jungles which caused a lot of hardships for the Cyrodiilic people. So Tiber Septim used Kim to completely wipe all the jungles of Cyrodiil off the face of Tamriel, leaving Cyrodiil the way it is today. But the strange thing is, Tiber Septim didn't just erase the jungles in the present, he wiped them from the entire timeline of the Elder Scrolls universe. In other words, the jungles were erased in the present, the future, and the past, as if they had never existed in the first place. This speaks to how powerful Kim is, and anyone who has achieved this state is quite literally god tier. But the concept of Kim goes even deeper. To achieve Kim, you have to go through this ordeal called the Psijic Endeavor, which has one of two outcomes. The first outcome is of course you achieve Kim, but the second outcome is that you zero sum. When you zero sum, you're completely erased from the timeline, as if you never existed in the first place. But this means the fact that you zero summed is also erased from the timeline. So by zero summing, you didn't actually zero sum. Which begs the question, how can you possibly define a concept that erases itself once it occurs? The topic of Kim and zero sum is a pretty complex one, and there are explanations that might help to clarify this contradiction, but it's still a massive brain twister. Fact number 4 deals with the eruption of the legendary volcano Red Mountain at the beginning of the 4th era. In the time of Vivek, the Daedric prince Sheogorath sent a massive meteor to destroy Vivek's city of Morrowind. When Vivek saw the meteor falling from the sky, he simply lifted his hand and froze it above the city. But instead of simply destroying the meteor, Vivek left it suspended so that if the people of the city ever stopped loving him, the meteor would descend on them and destroy everyone. Anyways, Vivek eventually disappeared during the Oblivion Crisis, making the meteor, which was now known as the Ministry of Truth, very unstable. Two Dunmer named Sol and Wuhan tried to solve this problem by creating a pact with Clavica's Vial to create a device known as the Ingenium, which would keep the meteor above Morrowind. But the problem was that the device made use of souls in order to keep the Ministry of Truth suspended, forcing the Dunmer to sacrifice people in order to keep their city safe. Eventually, Sol's own wife was sacrificed by Wuhan, and he attempted to save her, which caused the destruction of the machine. The meteor then crashed violently into the city, destroying it and causing vibrations that in turn caused the Red Mountain to erupt, which covered most of northern Morrowind in ash and lava and made it completely uninhabitable. This is why many of the Dunmer were forced to flee their land for Skyrim and Solstheim. The final fact of this video is arguably the strangest of all, and deals with Lig. To begin with, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, what the heck is Lig? Well, Lig is essentially an alternate universe version of Tamriel. It's also known as the Adjacent Place. The Daedric prince Mehrunes Dagon was created in the bowels of Lig by a group of Aedra known as the Magna Gi. It's said that Lig was created when Nirn was folded up, with Tamriel leaving an imprint of itself on some unknown location in Nirn, that location being Lig. According to the 36 Lessons of Vivek, a being known as Ha-Note was able to reach Lig by moving sideways in some unspecified manner, and accessing Lig involves something called non-cardinal points. It's even said that time changes as you move across Nirn, so many believe that Lig is located in some faraway portion of the timeline. But what's even crazier is that Michael Kirkbride, who wrote most of the major lore in the Elder Scrolls series, has said that Lig is one of the adjacent places, implying that this goes beyond just Lig. If Lig is an imprint created by Tamriel when Nirn was folded, what's to say that the other continents, such as Agavir, Atmora, and so on, didn't leave imprints of their own? Many believe that the other adjacent places is simply a reference to Oblivion or Aetherius, but I question whether this is actually the case. Lig is a part of Nirn, and is a twisted and alternate version of Tamriel, whereas Oblivion and Aetherius are entirely separate realms from Nirn and the rest of Mundus. This implies that Aetherius and Oblivion are entirely different from the concept of an adjacent place. At first, you might think that Tamriel is all there is to the Elder Scrolls universe. Then you learn about the neighboring continent of Akavir and their interactions with the Tamrielan people. Beyond this exist Atmora, Yokuda, and the other standard continents of Nirn. But this doesn't even begin to scratch the surface due to Lig and the possibility of other adjacent places in Nirn. And then even beyond Lig and the rest of Nirn, you have the realms of Oblivion and Aetherius. In sum, Lig is just one of many examples that the Elder Scrolls universe is even bigger than it may seem, and far from fully understood. Each discovery only leads to more possibilities, and every question answered gives birth to 100 more unanswered. A single stone unturned reveals countless more, as we wander the infinite plane that is Elder Scrolls lore.